Welcome back to Junction 119. This is Kellan.
This is Casen.
And after a week off for Thanksgiving, we are back. Casen, I wanted to ask you, what hat do you have on? Like, what is that?
Great question. I am wearing the hat of my high school.
That's what that is.
So
Okay,
this is the logo for the Archibald Blue Streaks.
that's
I
cool.
ended up getting this for my birthday. My mom gave it to me for my birthday.
Yes, happy birthday, by the way. Casen's birthday
Thank you.
passed.
Thank you.
Passed while we were away, among other things. I'll be real with you, Casen. Yours is a birthday that always sneaks up on me because, like, you don't have a Facebook, right?
Yeah, so it's actually very funny because I
Yeah.
don't I have a friend from high school who texted me happy birthday on Monday, and I was like, thanks, but like, I mean, like, my birthday was yesterday. And he was like, oh really? And I guess Facebook lied, and I was like, I don't have a Facebook.
That's
So
that's what it is. It lied
it's
by
it's
not
it's
being there.
totally fine. Yeah, it's fine. I don't ever expect people to remember that because
No, no, no.
it's always in with Thanksgiving and stuff. And
You rocking your high school hat reminds me. I was literally looking it up. AJ Hawk on the Pat McAfee show like is often wearing like Centerville on like his
Mhm.
shirt and stuff. I'm like, that's like incredible, especially if he's had some of that stuff since high school. Anyway, we got a full show for you. We're gonna do the regular slate. We're gonna talk about all things the NFL. We're going to catch up and talk about as many things as we can the in the weeks that we missed and things like that. Obviously, we're going to bring you of the weeks. Casen and I both saw the Marvels, so you're going to get a non-spoiler and spoiler review of that. It'll probably be more spoiler heavy, to be completely honest, just because that's how it's kind of been going as of late. But and then we each saw some movies, and we'll wrap up the show kind of giving our own little reviews of some other stuff that's out there. Casey and I both made it to the movies a couple of times over the past week and change. So let's take off, man. The NFL. I have to get this right because I update this week every single week. So we got the NFL week, really 11 and 12 to talk about. We're going to mainly talk about what just happened, but we will have definite references to stuff
Yeah.
that took place. Because if we had had a show last week, I would have been sitting here saying the Steelers fired Matt Canada. They did the thing. And then they immediately turned around and had 400 yards in a game for the first time in 3 years.
Yeah, I'm glad we didn't have the show because it would have just been like sort of dancing on Canada's grave. But
Yeah,
now we can actually provide statistical evidence that he was the problem.
he was the problem. He was the
That, like,
problem. It was
they
him.
come out and have the best offensive performance since he got hired.
Yeah.
Since before he got hired, because I think it was like the entire duration of his tenure they had never had a 400-yard game.
It was, I mean, it was insane to me that it was all the way from the COVID season, 2020,
Yeah.
where ironically the Steelers almost went undefeated that year, if you recall, and then got blasted by your Browns.
Yeah, that was the year was that the year they started like 11-0 or something?
Yeah, we
Or
started the
this was year
season like
before?
11. It was like 11 or 12-0. Yeah, but before the COVID schedule messed it all up. But anyway, yeah, that was something. But I'll say this: I don't. The Steelers' offense to me still had a lot of issues, but for me to visually just see Kenny Pickett open up the field a bit more, us actually getting to the targets, we hadn't targeted Freiermuth at all. So I mean, that was
Freiermuth in the middle of the field. You're allowed to do that?
Yeah, you're allowed.
That's legal.
I mean, it was. I really was going into that game with the Bengals, not expecting the Steelers' offense to look that much different, and I was a bit astonished by how much like visually different they looked from like the first drive. I was like,
Yeah,
okay.
I told friend of the show Matt this too. I was like, I am just glad we are not seeing you guys again until next season.
Well, that's another thing as well.
Potentially, but I was just like, I am glad that we're not going to have to play you guys. We actually know how to play offense.
Yeah, because I would have sat here and said I was commending the Browns for winning the game against the Steelers a couple of weeks ago, only to turn around and lose on Sunday. And I'm not saying that as like a tongue-in-cheek transition. I just want to hear you talk a little bit about that because for a co-host of mine who literally declared that he's more of a Seahawks fan this year, you've done you roll your eyes, but that happened.
Yeah.
You are doing quite a lot of rooting for the Browns. Any thoughts on where they sit right now?
Yeah, I mean,
last 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to look too much into the Broncos game. I mean, I actually like figured that was going to be a loss to begin with. I mean, going to Mile High out west, I knew it was going to be weird, and I just had a feeling. I went through and I wrote out the rest of the schedule actually,
I've got it in front of me
and
too.
like a week ago, and I penciled in a loss on that because I was just like, this is, especially after they beat the Chiefs, I was like,
Steelers, you
I'm
mean?
just not
Oh, you mean the Broncos
the
being the Chiefs?
Broncos, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. And so I was just like, I'm not feeling this as a win. I mean, it is what it is, and so I'm not going to be surprised. It's just the way that that went down wasn't ideal. Miles being potentially injured isn't great. DTR having a concussion and potentially not being in for Sunday, not great. But I will say, DTR looked relatively good. I mean, comparatively to how he looked against Baltimore the first time, he looked pretty decent. I mean, he was making passes. We still had issues with drops from the receivers, but he looked like a serviceable backup. And so I was at least happy with how he has been progressing. So we'll just have to see. I mean, maybe we'll get Joe Flacco against the Rams. I mean, that would
I
be something else.
I
But
mean, that's the story of this NFL, right? I mean, of this
yeah.
season, it feel like. I mean, I saw people joking on
Mm.
Twitter and other places that we realistically could see playoff matchups of like, what if the Super Bowl is like Josh Dobbs and the Vikings against DTR and the Browns? I was like, first of all, that would
Yeah.
be actually a pretty cool Super Bowl. But second of all, like, are we really going to see one of these backup quarterbacks go the distance once we hit the playoffs? I don't know.
I'll
Probably not.
so here's the thing. So I I'll begin to be a little bit more concerned if we just come out and look like garbage against the Rams. Like the Rams are seemingly getting better. Stafford had a good game. And so it's just like I'll be concerned if they look like garbage against the Rams.
Yeah.
But if it's a close game, I mean it's still not, all hope is lost. But then that's going to put a lot more pressure on beating Jacksonville, which I'll be at that game. So
Okay.
I will be at the Jacksonville game in Cleveland,
Interesting. Okay.
and so that'll be a very uh, that's important. I mean, especially with the Broncos loss, we're going to need that AFC game, and I
One
mean, if
half
that's yeah, yeah,
one half of the
if
Junction crew in the building, they better win.
yeah, if that's a loss, then I would be more concerned. So because that would
Yeah.
be, three straight, and all
I
hope would be lost at that point.
I
I
mean,
mean,
right
so
now there's really I don't really know what to make of the AFC North, as I've said kind of every week, other than the Ravens are clearly very good. Um, the Ravens might be the best team in the NFL right now at this point, like right now, at this very
mhm.
moment, playing the best football consistently. Them are the Eagles, and we'll get to that game. But I don't know. I'm still not a believer that the Steelers changes are going to be like enough to make like an actual contending run of any kind. But if our change when we made it is going to lead potentially both our teams to the playoffs, Casen, I welcome
Yeah,
that.
no, I mean, I would assume you would agree with this, but I think that if the Browns and or Steelers get in, I would say it's not going to be much more than just a one game exit.
No, I
Because
would
I
agree.
don't, because considering who they're going to probably be ending up going against, potentially the Ravens
Unless, of
or
course, we play
the
each other.
yeah, well,
Someone
yeah, I
has
would
to win that.
imagine. Yeah, especially if like we end up having to go to Arrowhead against the 2 seed Chiefs or something. That would be
I will
rough.
say with this though, I really feel like this year the AFC is significantly up for grabs because Kansas City really does not intimidate me. They haven't been playing well. They're banged
Hmm.
up. They just like if they flip a switch and are incredible in the playoffs again, okay, I wouldn't be surprised. But with the Ravens playing well and just you never know who could scooch in there and take them out. I'm not a believer that it's absolutely going to be Mahomes and the Chiefs. I mean, they don't win back-to-back Super Bowls. Typically, even when dynasties are going on, that doesn't happen. So I don't know. I have this feeling that well, one that the Super Bowl winners mainly maybe this year for sure going to come out of the NFC, but if not that, may not be Kansas City they're playing, whoever it is.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're definitely not as much of a Goliath as they used to be. But I mean, I am still not holding my breath that they're not going to end up winning the 1 seed anyway.
Right.
Because like we saw them sort of seemingly get back on track offensively this week. We saw Rashee Rice really have a terrific game. Travis kind of looked okay. And I mean, it's just, they just need to be like competent on offense, and the defense can probably do the rest.
Yeah.
Against 90% of the league.
Taylor
And
needs to be at
then-
every game. Sorry.
Well, yeah, I mean, she's free until February, so yeah, she needs to be there the rest of the season.
I was just throwing it out there. I wanted to also add I don't know if they're a lock for the 1 seed down the stretch, just because the Ravens are right there. The Jaguars are also
the
right
Ravens. The Ravens are hitting a really brutal part of their schedule.
They are.
And so that was more so what I was saying, was that the Ravens didn't look great on Sunday night.
Against a 4 and at the time 6 Chargers team. It was relatively pretty
so
unimpressive.
I mean, the Ravens are real, like, kind of up and down offensively. I mean, I think that was in LA, right?
Yeah.
So that was a West Coast trip. Yeah, I mean, it happens, but it's just we'll see. I mean, the Ravens could slide a little bit, and the Chiefs could get the 1 seed back.
Not to mention the Jaguars and Ravens play each other down the stretch.
That too. Yeah, that too.
Yeah, and the Dolphins, and then they get the Steelers again to end the season. Oh, happy day. Love that. I have to talk about the best football game I saw. One of the 2 best football games I saw this past weekend. Oh no, them Buffalo Bills. I will say this. This needs to be said right out of the gate. Josh Allen played incredible. That was like the definition of, like, for all the fans who want to directly point to Josh Allen will play maybe every year of his career in Buffalo and never win the Super Bowl through no fault of his own. They will point to games like the one against the Eagles on Sunday, where he could not have done anything more to win that football game. And the defense, I think there were reports that the Eagles offense in overtime couldn't believe the set that they came out. I'm starting to think that this team is really snake bitten by McDermott more than anybody else, because it's always a defensive blunder. And it's just like, I'm starting to think he's really more the issue than anything else. I mean, they have other issues on their roster internally that we have picked apart, but I mean, they had the Eagles dead to rights multiple times, and don't blame the officiating. I know people have tried to jump on that train. The Eagles are still really good. Okay. But yeah, I wanted to come out of the gate and begin this discussion, because I swear we've been huge critics of this team, and my man Casen is over here saying that their window's closed, which is a hill that he has firmly stood on, and he's not about to die on it, because he's looking more correct every single week. But that's just all I wanted to say as we ushered in this game, man. Did you get to see most of this game? I got to see almost all of it. So
yeah. So if you remember, do you remember the name Nathan Peterman at all?
I do.
So yeah, Nathan Peterman was a quarterback. I guess he's technically still in the league, but he had that infamous game where he started over Tyrod Taylor in 2017 and then proceeded to throw 5 interceptions. And that was essentially just McDermott's call to start him over Tyrod Taylor. And it was essentially like the worst call of all time.
He's with the Bears now, by the way.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so I think McDermott is just one of those dudes that sometimes just gets so in his own brain. Like he's a lot like Stefanski in the way where he just tries to outsmart everybody too hard, to the point where he's just like big braining himself into like being dumb. Like he always has to be like the smartest person in the room, and it ends up just coming back to bite him later. So yeah, I mean, I would not be surprised if they would just move on from McDermott, because it feels like he's sort of losing the locker room. And it just feels like maybe the front office isn't super happy with his decision making. And I wouldn't even say it's so much his fault. I mean, like we've talked about, Leslie Frazier kind of left at a really opportune time. for at least McDermott's perspective. And so he's just sort of having to be the DC as well as the head coach. And so that causes him to be a significantly worse head coach.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, it is what it is. I mean,
The conditions,
when you're the head coach and calling plays on the
Right.
defense, that's what happens.
I don't know how you fix this. I mean, this is such on paper a talented roster, and they are 6-6. They're slipping. The amazing stat I have is that now Josh Allen's 0-6 in overtime. That's kind of wild. Again, through a lot of the times, no fault of his own.
Yeah.
But it also needs to be said the Eagles are really good, and they would have been the team I would have picked going into this game to win it. The conditions in Philadelphia were disgusting, just blistering rain, cold. Eagles throwbacks looked incredible. I would even go as far as to say throwbacks of the week. But I'll say, yeah, just it was definitely the game of the day. Yes.
For the record, it's not out of the realm of possibility that that Sean McDermott is also just like an Eagles double agent, like spy. like he worked for the Eagles for like 20 years, and he's like from Philly. Like he's an Eagles fan.
Yeah, he definitely, yeah, probably when they're not playing his team for sure. But not regardless, I think it actually says more about how, yes, the defense blew it for Buffalo, but like the Eagles are really good, continue to find places or find ways to win. They're 10-1 for a reason and best record in the league. And I'm looking here. I actually did want to point this out because just looking at the Eagles, I still can't believe that the Eagles' one loss this year was to the Jets. And it was the first time the Jets ever beat them. That's just insane.
Yeah,
They're probably definitely going to lose again this year. They play the Cowboys again. They play the Niners next week, and they play the Giants twice. Now, Giants aren't good, no, but divisional games, you just never know. So,
here's my thing.
Yeah,
winner the 49ers Eagles game, I would imagine, is going to the Super Bowl.
I mean,
and if not winning it,
probably at very least locking up that it's going to be in Philly too. Probably at least very much in the driver's seat for that 1 seed of the NFC playoffs. I mean, no question.
I think the Eagles beat San Francisco and then lose to Dallas.
I can see that.
Because that's just brutal. That is brutal.
That's a brutal bet. I mean, they'll win one and lose the other one. Yeah.
Yeah. Because like they got the 49ers at home and they have to go to Dallas. So it makes sense that they'll split that home and away. It is what it is.
And they'll just turn around and win both of them. And it's the game after that. So anyway, the Eagles are for real. Needs to be said again. What other game you want to talk about? I'll let you pick the next one. There is a game I want to talk about, but I want to save it for of the weeks.
Okay. I mean, I'll just sort of I guess mention the Texans-Jags game.
Yeah.
Wild.
Wild game, and they were one missed kick off the crossbar away from going to overtime in that game.
Yeah, I mean, CJ Stroud and Trevor Lawrence combined for 668 yards.
That's a lot.
Passing. And CJ had 47 rushing yards. That's just insane.
I think it's safe to say that's going to be an AFC South quarterback duel for quite some time.
That is going to be fun to watch for the foreseeable future.
No question.
You love to see that.
Yeah.
But so Jacksonville won 24-21. I'd say that I think that probably pretty much locks up that they're going to win the division. Now it's just going to be Houston sort of battling, I guess, for the wild card spot. But
yeah, definitely. They were able to get one from the Jags earlier this year, but it makes sense that this team would split the way they do. Let me also.
The Jags have the Jake Browning Bengals the Panthers and the Titans left. So
Mhm.
I think that pretty much guarantees them 11 wins.
Yeah.
And then they're probably going to beat the Browns. And the Bucks too.
Oh,
So
probably. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Now,
the Jags could get anywhere from 12 to 30.
I'll say that one more time. The very last thing you said.
The Jags could probably get any 12 to 13 wins. I mean,
Gotcha. That was just in case you dropped out with the audio because you did for me. We will return to the NFL. Like I said, one of my of the weeks deals directly with a situation, but I want to save it for that because it's a good of the
okay.
Week. Do you want to switch to college football now? Kind of talk about rivalry weekend, everything, because it was rivalry weekend before obviously championship weekend is ahead of us. A lot of really good games. I will say basically all of them, though, how exciting, ending how we thought they would, except really for one. I'll start with a really weird one. Kentucky upset Louisville 38-31. Pretty significant rivalry in the state of Kentucky there, one that's kind of slept on, to be completely honest. That was the reason I point that out is because that was the only real rivalry game of the day that went opposite of the favored team. Louisville dropping that game, which I believe Louisville's still going to be in the ACC championship game, correct? Actually, I can just pull it up right here.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
So yeah, not exactly the best look as you roll in for a very big matchup against Florida State, but regardless.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know why Louisville's number 10 in the AP poll. Like, it doesn't really make sense to me. Or what? I don't know what these rank. Is this the playoff rankings? The AP poll? I don't know. But
should be the playoff rankings. But yeah,
I don't know for sure why they're so high. Just because like they beat a clearly fraudulent Notre Dame team and Duke sort of after they fell off.
Well, I do want to point out we're recording this. You'll hear this on a Wednesday for our listeners. We're recording this on a Tuesday, and the new rankings will come out tonight. So
yes.
So they'll definitely be lower by the time this show goes out. Just pointing that out.
Yeah, but here's the thing that's very funny though to me. Since we're discussing Kentucky, the Mark Stoops. So for anybody that's unaware of the saga, Texas A&M fired Jimbo Fisher. We've talked about that. The $76 million to not coach the Texas A&M Aggies.
Payout of the week.
It was reported late Saturday night after Kentucky beat Louisville that Mark Stoops was the target to be the next Texas A&M coach, and immediately everybody in Aggie land on Twitter revolted against the administration.
Yeah, like that sounds like normal mad stuff, but like the backlash was actually insane. Like, I think people were about to take pitchforks and torches directly to the offices there.
This sounds absurd and too absurd to be true, but somebody was reporting that Mark Stoops was on a private jet to go to College Station, landed at the airport, and the president and the AD were on the tarmac and told him to turn around and go home.
Go back. Yeah. Like, that is the rumored report. And the thing about it is, it's totally believable, isn't it?
I mean, it would make sense.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, when you also consider that Texas A&M is just one of those schools that see themselves like as Texas, in terms of status, which, let's be real, they're a massive, massive brand. And and let's be real, with all the stuff we said about Jimbo Fisher, they have to get this right. Right.
Yeah.
But when the backlash is so staunch that like everyone on Twitter nationwide can like see it, that like was eye-opening to me. I was like, you guys were really about to get this very wrong.
Yeah, it's just crazy to me. Like I mean, Stoops got Kentucky into being competent at football, so he's clearly good. It's just that when you pay somebody, $750 million to leave, like you think that they're going to want a big name and a big brand that people in the fan base are going to be happy with, and they ended up officially hiring Mike Elko from Duke, who was Jimbo's defensive coordinator, and they were mad he left.
Yeah,
so
absolute home run hire. I think he was terrific. That's an incredible hire.
former assistant at Bowling Green, by
Shout
the
out.
way.
Yep.
I believe he was also interviewing when Scott Loeffler was hired. So
Dude,
that interesting.
he was the architect, as we
Mm.
talked about when our friend of the show James was on to talk about the baseball season and other things. Mike Elko was the reason that defense was 6th in the nation when we were in college before you guys got there back in 2013. MAC champions 10 years ago. Shout out those guys. That defense was unbelievably good and one of the best in the country, and they were a MAC school, and that was because.
Well, and by the way, not to take anything away from him, but if you pay attention, the Wake Forest hasn't really been the same since Elko left. Like, Clausen definitely needed him.
And the thing that any good coach will tell you, it's hard to retain talent. It's kind of like just for me personally, I don't know if I've ever really talked to an assistant coach of any kind in any sport who doesn't one day see themselves as a head coach or would ever close the door on potentially being it one day, right? So it's hard to keep good coaches around. It's sort of like when you see some of these incredible rosters. I don't like using this example, but that Urban Meyer Florida team, like if you look at all of his assistants are like became like household head coaches in college football. There's a reason why every single position group was incredible. Okay.
Or even if you look at the NFL, the 2013 football team coaching staff.
I think you broke up again a little bit. You said New England.
I said even if you go to the NFL, the Washington football team from I think it was 2013. I think it was McVay, Shanahan.
Oh yeah,
McDaniel.
That was weirdly one of them.
Yeah.
Not all of those are good NFL coaches, but
I think it's just a lot of head coaches
for sure
on that team though. But it's hard to keep assistants, especially when they're good.
Oh yeah.
So anyway, that was my little Texas A&M story. But
oh no, absolutely. But I think they really got that hire right. I wish him luck. I mean, it's really tough to take jobs like that. And, I really hope he's what I genuinely hope that he's what the Aggies need going, into this new era of the SEC with, their old rival Texas and Oklahoma joining and all that stuff. So I wanted to go back here because we have to talk about the elephant in the room, Michigan, Ohio State. Got to be completely honest with you, Casen, because of my Saturday schedule, I didn't get to see a down of this game. Anything I saw in highlights afterwards, and I'm just being transparent for the listeners out there because I know a lot of listeners watched this game. So what I'm saying is, like, cough, cough, Casen, take it away. What are your thoughts about the game? Because I have my own. I picked Michigan in this game. I want to make that very clear. Going into that, I thought absolutely Michigan would win, mainly because it was in Ann Arbor, but this nucleus just knows how to beat this Ohio State team now. This, as I've said to people, Ohio State doesn't win this game anymore, at least not with Ryan Day there. But continue. Go ahead. I'm hogging the time.
Yeah. So it was very close. It was a very close game. If you look at the score, I mean, it was it was 14-10 at halftime, and it was always within a score pretty much. It just felt like it felt like anything could happen, anybody could win for most of that game, but there was just a few points where the momentum just wasn't there for Ohio State. And my key takeaway from watching that game, which is now Day's third straight loss to Michigan, it's just that he is not learning anything from it. Like there was in that game where he punted on 4th down from like, I think it was 4th and 1 from like maybe the 49. And it was a position where it was like you're punting here. Like, seriously, like
you need to be more aggressive.
It was really early in the game. And so I'm sure he just didn't really want to like potentially not get it. but at the same time, I saw that and I was just like, he's not being aggressive because he needs to be aggressive to win this game. And you can just tell that he's not confident. He doesn't believe in their ability to win that game.
No. And the one really huge thing I think all of Buckeye Nation needs to hear anyone say, not just me, you don't get rid of Ryan Day, at least not yet. But I will say that he's starting to get a lot of the same criticism that Harbaugh got prior to them, getting really good, right? And
well, the issue with Harbaugh was that he was losing to everybody else too.
Yeah,
Harbaugh was losing to State. Harbaugh was losing to Penn State. Like Harbaugh would win 10 games,
right? Correct, and
then lose to Florida in the bowl game.
Right. But that said, it's a lot of the same energy. And I would continue to say, like I said at the time, it's like, I would understand if you guys moved on from Harbaugh, but at the same time, who are you going to get that's going to keep you better? And again, I cannot emphasize this enough to any fan base out there that's really upset or fed up with your coach. I mean, we sat here 2 weeks ago and said the similar thing to Penn State, and you astutely pointed out, we're about to go to a 12-team playoff in Power 5 Division I football. Okay. You don't get if the season ended, Ohio State would be one of those teams. They're going to be in that playoff. You know what I mean? Where you might get a second crack at Michigan. That's the one thing I don't think enough fan base, I think a lot of carousel is going to happen this offseason without that in mind. And it's if we had just retained that guy, I don't think I'm just going to make this very clear. I don't think any of these guys are going anywhere yet. Any of our examples. But again, it's you're not going to get rid of a guy who's going to win 11 games a year. Okay, yeah, you might lose to Michigan in the regular season, but if you're in the playoffs, you have a shot at the championship, and that's what the goal is. That's all. What were we going to say?
Well, the primary point that I at least wanted to was at least address was that the game was within a touchdown, and the difference was a Kyle McCord interception that was basically almost a pick six, I think. And Kyle McCord has 6 interceptions on the season. It's just he's not a turnover machine, and he just happened to throw one in the worst possible game to do that.
Yeah, Michigan got the big play.
If he doesn't throw that, it's gonna end up being tied. And that, I mean, it's just that ended up being the difference in the game. And then there were a couple other plays. There was the big controversial Roman Wilson touchdown that might not have been a touchdown. And so it's just kind of it is what it is. But if you have a better offense, you're not in the situation to where it's that close to where those things matter. Right. It's just the difference is that Kyle McCord is an okay quarterback. He's okay. It's just that I don't think that he's CJ Stroud or he's not the caliber of quarterback that you would need to be able to contend for national championships.
They haven't had good. I had an Ohio State fan outright say to me, they haven't had good quarterback play all year. So the fact that is what contributed to not beating Michigan is well, yeah, of course. So
Kyle McCord is a solid game managing quarterback that will beat Rutgers, that will beat Indiana. It's just but he's not going to be able to beat you over the top, throwing 50 passes a game and just, bomb after bomb down the field. That's just not him. But he can, beat half the Big Ten game. But I mean, and that's on Day. I mean, the fact that they're in the position to where they have probably the worst quarterback since I don't know, before Braxton Miller, that's on him. I mean, Ryan Day completely blew up the quarterback room when he tried to get Quinn Ewers, and no one ever thought he was going to stay and actually be a quarterback for the team. So when he paid him, when he got somebody to give Quinn Ewers $1 million to come to Columbus for 9 months, that was on him for blowing up the recruiting process for the quarterbacks. But I mean, it is what it is. We'll see what next year does, because Ryan Day's approach to the team is to build a team that can beat Georgia, not a team that can beat Michigan.
Right.
Like that is his approach to the team. And it showed. Like they almost beat Georgia, and they would have beat Georgia if they made a field goal. Like it is, I mean, and then they would have won a national championship, and we wouldn't even be having this conversation. But it's so we'll see what a Ryan Day team does in a 12-team playoff, because he's built to beat everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just, that's the thing, is that Harbaugh ended up engineering a program that is the complete antithesis of the Ohio State team and is designed to do one thing, and that is beat Ohio State, which credit to them, because they were getting, shoved around for a decade, and they finally like are leading the pack for the first time in a while.
I get that. I get that, but that's the thing. Like, hopefully that philosophy carries into the 12-team playoff where they can still contend, because the problem is if you don't beat, most years up to now, if you don't beat Michigan, you don't make it into the playoff. And so they've gotten lucky at times, but they've gotten incredibly lucky.
It's going to turn, I mean, it's going to turn into, I think, sort of like an NFL divisional rivalry where, like the loser of that game now has to go on the road in the 12-team playoff, and say they end up having to face each other in the 12-team playoff.
Right.
And it's like they could knock each other out of title contention. Like, so there was a lot of talk on game day about like the end of this rivalry game meaning something, but it could still mean something. I mean, it could.
Any talk like that, I think, is ridiculous right now, because the thing, like this rivalry game meaning something. First of all, let me just say it will always mean something. If you're going to tell me that the Iron Bowl isn't always going to mean a lot to everybody, which low key is a more ferocious rivalry in college football, just throwing it out there. That's absurd, and it just sounds like show speak to me.
There is something to be said, though. I mean, if you end up playing a team 3 times in college football, like that is absurd. Like, I mean,
I don't think we're going to hit that, but yeah, I mean,
it's possible. I mean, Ohio State and Michigan play the last week of the season. They play the next week for the Big Ten championship game, and then they play the next game in the playoff.
That would be incredible, actually.
3 games in a row against each, like that. That is insane.
That would be nuts. I now I see what you mean. That really
could happen. And that's 100% plausible. Like, not just Michigan and then Ohio State. Like, that could happen with with anybody. Like, I mean, anybody.
It could. It really could.
I mean, especially
I'm here for it because it'll be utter chaos. But get ready for hate month instead of hate week, as they call it. Area of the country, where you can't say M in anything in Columbus and whatever the stupid things they do in Ann Arbor for the same. I get so sick of that every year, by the way, for all you Ohio State, Michigan fans. Anyway, especially those of you that attended a different school, and yet I see all the M's crossed out of your stuff. Get out of here with that. I am going to use this platform to say that to all the Walmart fans out there of those 2 schools. But anyway, I digress. Regardless, the exact thing I thought was going to happen. I do want to talk about another rivalry game, but it actually kind of is one of my of the weeks. And I'm just going to go ahead and say, I'll just go ahead and say what it is. Of course that happened of the week. The way Alabama beat Auburn. The Iron Bowl. I just have to. I did watch like the whole end of that game, and I'm just sitting here thinking to myself, Alabama's going to win this, right? Like, they're definitely going to win this. And then everything just kept going wrong. And then, of course, they get down to that one last play. What was it, like 4th and 31 or whatever? Or 3rd and 31 or something like that. And then he just bombs it back in the end zone, bang. And I just said, and I literally said out loud, and they score immediately. And I just busted out laughing. I was like, of course that happened. That's my of course that happened of the week. Any thoughts on that game, Casen? The Iron Bowl is always wild.
Yeah. So I was it was down in the basement doing some home project thing, and the group chat started going nuts, and they were like, Alabama, and I looked at the score and I was like, what? And so I turned it on.
Me,
right
or was
before.
It from someone else?
It was you. It was it was Matt, and it was someone. Yeah, it was so many people. And so I turned on the rest of the game on my phone. It was right before. I think it was on the 3rd down of that last drive. And I was just like, all right, let's just see Nick Saban lose. they get fourth down, and I was like, oh, what are they going to do here? And
Snap goes
then,
right by the quarterback. Like everything is going wrong, bro.
yeah. And I was like, what? And then all of a sudden that play happened. And I was like the rest of the people at Jordan Hare. I was just like,
Did that really? All we had to do was knock down one pass, and we couldn't do that. Nope, you couldn't. Not when it's thrown on a dime. An incredible catch. That was an amazing catch, by the way. Like that was just like a big time moment, and it was just like, okay, yeah. And I think they had something like 30 seconds left, and it's like, Auburn's not making it down.
Well,
tie this game. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, what did he like? What was it like rushing 2? I think is like they just let him sit there for 15 seconds.
They didn't rush anybody.
Like, which like I guess like ultimate prevent is a strategy, but then you better be covering your guys.
Yeah,
because they clearly weren't. they just let the guy go into the end zone with like one dude sort of playing soft against him, and it was just like, come on.
Yeah, I mean, I think they had one guy spying. I mean, at least do something to put pressure on the quarterback to at least mess with the throw of some kind. You know what I mean? So it's not just a perfect strike to the back of the end zone. But regardless, Alabama wins. They're headed to the SEC championship game to face Georgia, of course. To be said, I wanted to give a shout out to Washington State because they balled against Washington about as hard as you can for a team that's sitting at number 4 and on their way to the Pac-12 championship game, even if you beat them. And
yeah,
if Washington State had won, by the way, they would have become bowl eligible. So they played Washington about as hard as you possibly could. And they also, after they completely destroyed Colorado, as we talked about, I think they actually played someone else in between because that was 2 weeks ago. We talked about that. Regardless, but Washington prevailed with a last-second field goal, 24-21. The Huskies are headed to the Pac-12 championship game to play Oregon for a second time, I believe.
We did get confirmation though that they are extending the Apple Cup, right? So I think they got the Apple Cup on the books. Yeah.
One of my of the weeks, and we're kind of tippy-toeing here, was I do want, that is warranting to point out, Casen, because sad social media post of the week, it was a picture of the Oregon Duck and the Beaver locked arm from behind, and it said "till next time" after their last rivalry, and I thought to myself, yeah, I mean, this is the reality of realignment. Like, who knows when they're playing again? Like,
so that brings up a great point, and I want to at least sort of address. We talked a lot about it when the news broke and stuff.
Sure.
The Pac-2 situation is devolving to be quite depressing.
Yeah.
So Oregon State, really good program. I currently in the state, and they just lost their head coach, Jonathan Smith, who was a former player at Oregon State, and he ended up getting the Michigan State job. And so
yeah, you said
he left. And so now today news broke that Washington State's quarterback Cam Ward is transferring. And so now we're just kind of sitting here like Oregon State doesn't have a coach. Washington State lost their star quarterback, and here they are, without a conference next year. And
this is,
I mean,
it's sad. I mean, and to be honest with you, this was definitely like going to happen if they had, because the one thing we haven't heard anything about, Casen, is, are you guys not trying to join a conference? I mean, that should be that should have been, at least I hope it is anyway, among those fan bases. I don't know, if this ever reaches any of them, but like, they have to be talking with each other and others about, like, we need to join we need something, because it's going to be impossible to hire anyone if we do not do that. Like,
I've heard a lot of rumblings about, I mean, I think it's coming soon. I think they were just waiting till the end of the season. I've heard a lot of rumblings about basically merging with the Mountain West to retain the Pac-12 name. But yeah, the media rights are going to be significantly less than what they had, and so it's just kind of like, it's just really, really unfortunate for those two schools that got basically stranded on an island.
Like no schools have ever seen before. But this is the one of the things we didn't talk about. We might have mentioned it here and there, but just this idea of, I think this could absolutely happen again with certain, especially with football teams that don't bring any value. Like, whether or not you want to make the Pac-12 fans want to, make this point or not, whether or not Oregon State or Washington State deserve this, no school or fans deserve this. But I will say, like, Vanderbilt is still in like the SEC. A lot of the schools in the middle of the Big Ten, none of y'all do anything any year. So it's sort of like, I mean, at least not in football. And so it's like, I don't know. It's bad for those fans and alumni that it had to happen.
There will come a time when the value for keeping like programs like Indiana basketball and Vanderbilt baseball does not outweigh kicking them to the curb because of football revenue.
Exactly.
Like there will come a point when there is an Alabama, Michigan, Ohio State, Georgia, LSU, Texas, Oklahoma, like super conference, and all of those bottom feeding programs aren't invited to the table.
Like,
and
sort of like how we like Division I is split into tiers unofficially, group of five, Division 5.
Yeah.
We might hit like super, I mean, that or we get football only conferences, which I think also could happen someday.
There's also like a lot of speculation around the Power 5 football, like around the Power 5 like football conferences leaving the NCAA and like sort of doing their own thing,
right?
And being like its own league.
And I'm just going to throw this out there, structure wise, unless you can come up with a structure of how that would even work, I've never entertained that as an actual real thing. But that's the business, right? Like almost like a pseudo. I know they've talked about almost like a pseudo like minor league NFL kind of thing, but we'll see what happens, and we'll be here to talk about it the whole time. But I'm glad you brought that up, Casen, because it has been pretty sad headlines. What's up?
Yeah, I don't know if you noticed, but breaking news for your
I saw
mater.
That. Yeah, yep. And I bet friend of the show Matt's gonna get a kick out of this, that he sent us something in the middle of a recording, and it's like, oh hey, yeah, it's that. Syracuse has hired a new head football coach, because that's one of the other things that happened while we were gone. Syracuse moved on from Dino Babers. And it looks like Fran Brown is going to be the new head coach of the Orange. So
I want to know your thoughts on this, because first of all, weird to me that a dude is just leaving or is like taking job offers the week they're prepping for a championship game, like in the middle of a title run. Like that just feels odd to me.
See, I'm trying to figure out. Okay, I see where it is. He was the defensive backs coach at the University of Georgia. Has been named the 31st head coach in the history of Syracuse University football. I mean, here's my thing. It's one of those situations where he got the offer now, and you really can't wait on it. And if you want to be a head coach, this is the means of doing so. That's honestly as simple as I get it. I don't know what, like, let's be real, in terms of the long-term health, I don't know. I don't want to knock my alma mater of any kind, of one of my alma maters, but it's sustaining football in the ACC when you're not like Clemson sized, I suppose, or maybe not size wise, but the budget wise, it's just hard to get someone who's going to maintain a football program. And I really just hope that Fran's good.
From what it sounds like, he was a longtime Temple assistant on Adazio's staff and Matt Rule's staff at Temple.
Gotcha. I'm not taking the time right now to read the whole thing. I'll do that.
So anyway, very interesting. I just thought it was weird because it was sort of rumored for a while that he was the guy, and then I was like, that just kind of feels weird, because like, you remember when everybody in the NFL was just hiring anybody that had lunch with Sean McVay to be their head coach?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, just hire a position coach from Georgia. Like, it just feels weird to me that it's just like,
Yeah, it feels telegraphed. It feels like this is what definitely was always going to happen.
Like somebody Googling the best offense in football and hiring the cheapest assistant they can find from that program.
Yeah. That's a deep cut. That's a deep cut reference by Casen right there. If you know, you know. That's
if you know, you know.
If you know, you know. That was good, dude. That was good. But do you want to move fully into of the weeks?
Yeah. We can get into that.
Cool. So like we'll officially get into our full of the weeks now after our college football conversation. Do you want to start? Because I have like I have a good several. I already gave a few of them, a couple of them kind of in passing.
Yeah. I mean, I will have I'm gonna have to go ahead and just say uh lot like what's the word? I guess bad beat of the week, and that would be Ohio State. I had a decent amount of money on that situation, and very unfortunate for me.
That's L of the week for
Yeah,
for you,
yeah,
Casen. That's an L of
yeah,
the week for you.
yeah.
I on the I don't know topic of kind of sad things or whatever. I did kind of like have um a melancholy shout out of the week, and I actually just shouting something out. One of the things that happens every year, I think every year on Thanksgiving Day, is the Egg Bowl, which is between Ole Miss and Mississippi State, which Ole Miss won this year. After the game, Lane Kiffin was quoted as saying he missed Mike Leach. So I just kind of wanted to, yeah, that's like the first thing he said, I guess, or in the presser or something like that. So just wanted to give a shout out to Mike, the late great Mike Leach, football guy, maybe the football guy
Mhm.
of all football guys, one of them.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, just the heartbreaking loss of him last year around this time of year, even. It was right around
Yeah.
now, actually a year ago. So wanted to at least give him one of the shout outs there for of the weeks.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah. Yeah.
since you did mention that, we should at least mention that Mississippi State they have hired Jeff Lebby, offensive coordinator from Oklahoma, to be their next head coach.
Gotcha.
So that is a great poaching, because Oklahoma kind of mediocre again this year, a little bit. I mean, better than average, but their offense was incredible. So
Yeah.
Jeff Lebby, terrific hire. I'm actually honestly kind of a little surprised, but the fact that he went there. But
Yeah.
great get for them. Great get for them.
Great get for them. Great get for them. Let's see here. Wanted to take a look here. Yeah. You know what? I'm gonna go ahead and say let's get into it. My upset of the week was and I just this is probably a little bit of a low blow, but there's nothing like there's nothing like the tradition on Thanksgiving, Casen, of watching the Lions lose. And I'll tell you what, I'll tell you what, my upset of the week goes to the Packers, because I was like sitting here straight up rooting for the Lions, and I was like, what's going on here? What's going on? And then they lose. Now, granted, they did score like 17 points, what it was, in the last like 4 minutes against the Bears. So they were probably still like tired from that. But yeah, the Packers beat the Lions. That's my upset of the week.
So my fan fiction of the week is also that game. Because people pointed out that the only game in which the winning team did not get turkey after was the Packers after they beat the Lions. And so people were very confused about that. And so like the Cowboys, well, we didn't even talk about the Cowboys, the amazing celebration after they went up like 28 points or something. They jumped in the Salvation Army bucket, grabbed some turkey legs, and were eating those. Hilarious celebration. But they got turkey. The Niners got turkey. So the Packers didn't get turkey, and apparently somebody, like, I doubt this is true, but it's just very funny. Somebody was claiming that they didn't get turkey because Fox seared the Lions logo onto the turkey because they were just expecting the Lions to win that game. And so
that actually that would have been kind of awesome if the Packers would have been like, hey, check this out. And then they're eating the actual turkey with the Lions.
Yeah, that would have been hilarious.
That actually would have been awesome. But you got Fox who were like, well, we're not going to admit we made that mistake. What do you think this is? So
somebody was also trying to claim that it was because Greg Olsen like ate the turkey before the game, and he was like he was like eating the turkey before they could.
Who knows?
I don't know. There was a lot of just hilarious stuff. So that's just very funny to me.
I have two I'm going to do real quick. I've I'm not like done, but Tradition of the week. I love the fact that Thanksgiving Day is just named after John Madden now. I love that.
Yeah. Oh,
I love
love
that
it. Love it.
every single NFL venue, regardless of every single network had a separate tribute to him. So like you got to see different clips of him throughout the day. I was like, we need like I know last year was like the first year for it. I love that is just a tradition now. And that tradition of the week, that was incredible to me. I love the fact that the NFL has done that. I love the fact that the Madden family like is part of it too. Like, you know, they have like they showed his kids and his wife, and it was all it was great. So shout out John Madden, one of the absolute goats. And then I do have an absolute dog of the week. No, go ahead. I have an absolute dog of the week. Go ahead.
Well, it was absolutely incredible that like the coin toss coin.
Yeah.
It had Madden's face on one side, and the reverse was the turducken.
Yeah, they got the turducken, and then you have good point, Case, and then also they all wore patches. I thought that was great.
Yeah,
that's awesome. So like hats off NFL. That was so like I love that that's a thing. I do have an absolute dog of the week.
Okay,
and it goes to Deron Bland.
That was going to be mine too.
Yeah, absolute dog. Let's go ahead and just nerd out about that for a second. Deron Bland, who is defensive back for the Cowboys, etched his name in the NFL history books after tallying record-breaking 5th pick 6 of the NFL season against the Commanders on Thanksgiving Day. Incredible day to do that on, but also that record's going to stand for a long time, I think. Like, pick sixes are hard to do. You know what I mean?
I never mind the fact that it's not even December.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to keep building on that.
I mean, he could end the season with 2 more. I mean,
I literally was sitting thinking about. I was like, my mom actually visiting for Thanksgiving. We were talking about like that's a record that he might have well into the rest of his life. Like no one's like it's just hard to go pick 6 that many times in a season.
Well, how long has the 4 stood? I don't know. I don't know.
That's actually good. That's actually a good question, Casen. I hadn't thought of that. Yeah. That's something that we can definitely look up yourself, listeners. But yeah, the 4, but yeah, I mean, a long time. So 5's a lot, and it's on counting. So shout out, they're on.
Maybe just stop throwing on his side of the field. Like I don't know. I mean, maybe just stop doing that.
Game plan away from that guy. Yeah, I mean, let's just throw it directly to. Oh, it's a touchdown for the other team. Well, that's well, everything on film said that would probably happen. So anyway, shout out. It might have even been that celebration you were talking about. He might have been the one who jumped in the Salvation Army.
I think it was. Yeah, I think
that's what made me think of that. Yeah.
But also should not be forgotten that after the Cowboys, I think beat the Commanders by like 38 or something. I don't know. They beat them by a lot.
Mm-hmm.
The Commanders fired Jack Del Rio. So
45-10, by the way.
45-10. So yeah, 35.
Also, just for reference, the Cowboys scored 25 points just in the 4th quarter of that game. Like,
yeah,
if you tuned in at halftime on, I mean, they absolutely destroyed them in 1 quarter. It's crazy. But anyway, yeah, that's what gets you fired. That's a defensive coordinator. It's that. Yeah, it's 25 points in 1 quarter.
There's also some like there was also some sort of speculation that the only reason Rivera wasn't fired was because he's basically like handing the team over to Bieniemy moving forward, and like so Rivera's basically helping him. I don't know.
Rivera might be one of those Black Monday firings. You know what I mean? Monday after the season ends.
I think he's definitely gone. It's just the question over whether or not they just promote Bieniemy moving forward. I don't know.
Right, where half the league gets fired on the first Monday after the season ends,
yeah.
Regular season.
Yeah.
So that's that. I wanted to say, let's see. Signing maybe not of the week, but of the day. This was interesting because we're gonna go off to a different sport for a second. To ice hockey, sport that we haven't talked as much about, but we've had other stuff to talk about. We'll get there at some point. Patrick Kane set to rejoin the NHL and with the Detroit Red Wings. That's fascinating to me because I saw that literally today being Tuesday, and I was like, oh, that's eye-opening because they're building in Detroit, and it's just interesting. Well, one, it's also just interesting to see a former great for a heated and hated rival in the Blackhawks. If you're a Detroit fan, joining your squad, I just think it's a really good pickup for the Wings. Just wanted to give a shout out.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll see how much he can contribute.
Yeah.
I mean, he is little up there at this point.
Oh yeah,
but hilarious. I mean, I feel like he's only allowed to play for original six teams because he has now played for half of them.
he has
So
officially. Yeah. Wow.
Because he was a Blackhawk and then he went to the Rangers last year and then now he's going to the Red Wings.
I don't think the Wings have made it
so,
official yet, but that is the rumor.
Yeah,
that is the for the rest of join. Yeah, I mean joining the Red Wings for the rest of the season. So we'll see. I don't know when the Red Wings go back to the go to Chicago, but that's going to be an interesting situation for sure. Anyway, and I just wanted to double check this. I already said my of course of the week. Yeah, that was all my of the weeks, Casen. You have any more?
Yeah, I have I have a meme of the week.
Oh.
And this is recent because I think we've been on the show is when it became official. The Arkansas football program is welcoming back legend Bobby Petrino with open arms as their new offensive coordinator under Sam Pittman. If anybody does not know, Bobby Petrino is a disgraced former head coach of the Arkansas Razorbacks, and he is now back in the locker room as their offensive coordinator. Because I believe he was the offensive. I think he was the offensive coordinator for Jimbo at A&M, and so now he is without a job. And welcome home. Welcome home, buddy.
I just got to just paint a little bit of a picture of what Casen's referring to. I see a tweet announcing the news. Every single tweet in response is just the image of him with the brace on. Every single response. It's like 5 in a row. So I'm not even kidding.
So for anybody that is unaware,
yeah,
I believe Bobby Petrino was at Arkansas and he got into a motorcycle accident, I believe, with his mistress.
Yeah,
on the back of it. And it was like a huge,
he actually was injured. Like he broke his neck. He actually messed himself up.
He showed up to a press conference with a neck brace.
The next day. Yeah.
And it has been a meme on Twitter for years.
Oh, it's a meme everywhere for you. It's
never mind the fact that he also was the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons for 13 games. And then he just quit and left a note in the locker room heading back to college. See you guys.
Yeah, it was he hasn't exactly kept his bridges intact. We'll just put it that way.
He's basically burned the bridge on his way out the door everywhere he's
everywhere.
Everywhere.
It's been not great. So anyway, that's definitely meme of the week. That is hilarious, actually.
And then my final award for the week is owner of the week, and that goes to Carolina Panthers owner David Tepper for firing Frank Reich after 11 games. So absolutely just king stuff on that one from David Tepper. You force your front office to draft a 5'8" quarterback that can't play football and fire them because they don't make them good. So
well, I also
just awesome stuff.
We don't like when people lose their jobs, and that includes that includes Canada and other people, all that. But I think I saw something that Frank Reich is the first NFL coach in history to get fired off a team in consecutive years, which is which is one, I think, a little hard to believe. Honestly, I would kind of I was like, wait, really? That's never happened before? At the rate these guys get fired, I just would have thought that would have happened at some point. You know what I mean? But
typically if you get fired as a head coach, you're not going to get another head coaching job to then get you know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
If you're bad enough to get fired to where you would get fired the next year, you probably wouldn't get hired. So you're usually a coordinator to then be a head coach again. Like
in my years SIDing, sports information directing, I have a phrase that I've often said to many people, and I'm sure I'm not the person who I'm sure I'm not the only person who said this, but I often say when it comes to sports statistics and things like that, you'd be more surprised by what hasn't happened than what has happened. I often really attribute that to baseball things, just because baseball's been played for so long. But
yeah,
we've been playing these organized sports for just a century as we know them, and it's just like it's kind of always amazing to me, like what hasn't happened. Even the stat with the Steelers that they hadn't made a coaching change like that since 1941. I was like, that sounds made up, but like I'm sure it's real, and of course it was. So anyway, hopefully Frank Reich lands on his feet. I don't think it's a rough situation there in Carolina. I will say I sent a hilarious tweet to Casen, which was just, Frank Reich fired in the middle of the season, and it was just Jeff Saturday. Referring to when the Colts hired him as the coach for the rest of the year last year. Frank Reich was let go. So that actually made me like belly laugh. That was hilarious.
I mean, I still like think Frank Reich it could be good. I mean, he's gotten basically no breaks from a talent perspective. Like his roster has always been garbage. He took the Colts job expecting his quarterback to be Andrew Luck, and then Andrew Luck retired, and he had a revolving door of mediocrity after that. And
so it just bad breaks, man, like really bad breaks. So if I were him, I wouldn't try to be a head coach for a while. I'd be like, look, I'll stay in the league, but I ain't head coaching for a while.
I will say this for you. Start house hunting in Pittsburgh, buddy.
Hey, interesting. Keep your eyes on that. Is that it for other weeks?
That is it. Yes, that is it.
All right. I cannot tell you how many. What?
Real quick, I'm seeing this. It's very interesting because I have been pounding the table for this dude for months. So I'm just going to share this.
Okay.
Pete Thamel reporting at 4:00. San Diego State has targeted Colorado offensive coordinator Sean Lewis as the school's next coach, with the deal expected to come together soon.
Okay.
So that's a good fit. I mean, Mountain West, that screams Sean Lewis to me. So I'm happy because he got I don't know what Dion was doing when he like demoted him, and I'm glad that somebody like acknowledged the fact that Dion was just being weird, because Sean Lewis is a good coach. He got Kent State to be relevant for a couple of years.
He's also just an incredible motivator. You ever listen to that guy like talk to a room? It's incredible. Like, the stuff he was saying about Kent State football, I'm like, no wonder these guys are winning. Like, they believe in it, So I hope he gets another head coaching. I hope that happens. Quite frankly.
Yeah.
So one more thing
I'll say. Terrific fit.
One more thing I'll say is that apparently, former Cardinals head coach Cliff Kingsbury has emerged as a favorite to become the Houston Cougars' next head coach. So I actually think that would be a pretty good fit too. So
yeah, I mean, we'll see if he wants to be
college coach.
He has basically his pick of the jobs. And I mean, that's basically like essentially another Texas Tech.
Yeah.
Weird to me that he would go there, but I mean, because it's probably kind of like a rival situation. I don't really know, but
but it's back in Texas where you had success. It's not where you left. It would make sense.
Yeah.
Maybe he just wants to go back to where he was successful.
But hey, I mean, that's the thing of moving up, is that Houston probably wouldn't have ever gotten like a potential. I don't know. I mean, I still don't think Cliff is like that good, because he was like forever 7-5 at Texas Tech. But a coach of that name brand would never have gone to Houston when they were in the American. So that's the thing they only got because they're in the Big 12 now. But.
Right. So there you go. Casen, you want to review the Marvels? We've both seen the Marvels.
Yeah, we can start out with the one we've seen together.
And because it's a Marvel movie, we have to do our incredible rating system that you came up with at the end, which, to remind the viewers and listeners, is bronze, silver, gold, vibranium. So I guess we'll go non-spoilers first. Like just for if those who haven't seen it, and then we'll get into spoilers.
Uh, yeah, yeah,
Or do
yeah,
you want
yeah.
to just go straight into spoilers?
I mean, let's just go. I mean, yeah, let's just go into spoilers, I guess. I
Yeah, we'll go into
mean, yeah,
spoilers because anyone
the movie's been out for a week.
it's
Yeah,
it's been out for a while. Spoiler warning if you haven't seen the Marvels. The other reason I think we should go right into spoilers, Casen, is because a lot of people are not going to see this movie. It's had the biggest drop off.
yeah.
It's had like the biggest drop off in like a history of superhero movies. I don't know, whatever the stat is. Do I necessarily think this film warrants that kind of drop off? Personally, no. But I will say that after I saw the film, and I'm just going to be blunt with it, if there's an MCU project to skip this year, it's definitely this movie. Uh, I didn't. I told. Let me just paint the picture. I saw this movie last week, and then I texted you, saw the Marvels, we'll talk, and then you were like, "Oh boy," and I texted you, wasn't bad. I really don't think it was like a bad movie by any stretch, but it definitely felt formulaic. It definitely felt like, why are we here? You know, it just a lot of it. The best stuff in there, and I'll just be blunt, were when the three of them, Carol, Kamala, and Monica, when the three of them were like nerding out and like having like girl time and learning their powers and figuring that out. Like, I wish that could have been more than a montage. I would have liked like several scenes. Maybe they go to a planet where they're figuring it out. You know, I mean, it would have extended the runtime of the movie and would have given me better stuff. But I don't think that time was wasted, which is why I don't think
Yeah.
it's bad. Go ahead.
So yeah, I'll just start. Okay, so
Start wherever you want. This isn't going to be a play.
Yeah. So I'll just start with by saying, yeah, I would agree that it probably wasn't like a great movie from like a structural standpoint. But I think it definitely is not. I mean, you definitely get the fact that Iman Vellani came to perform with this one as she did in Ms. Marvel, her show. She is so happy to be playing Kamala Khan, and she is so happy. Like, you can see it in the interviews she's been doing for the promo.
She loves this.
That like she loves it. She loves Kamala as a character. She loves being able to be involved, and she is doing a very good job of portraying basically, you know, the type of I guess excitement a super fan would have of meeting their idol. And it's very funny. It's a very funny situation of her like interacting with Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
And it's we'll get to it. We'll get to that perspective of it, but it's also a lot like Hawkeye with Kate Bishop meeting Clint.
Yeah, you meet your hero. It is a very similar dynamic. I will say that I loved when like obviously they're changing places obviously and all this stuff, but what precedes it is obviously this moment where Monica, who's also kind of unsure of all she can do with her powers, saves. They're falling to the ground, and she does the thing, and they hit the ground, and Nick Fury's like, "Oh, it's Carol. We're fine." And then
I laughed so hard at that.
He
was like, "Oh, it's Carol.
Oh, it's Carol. We're good." And then incredibly, she just goes binary to just fly to where they are, which was amazing. She just goes there, and then there's that moment where they jump off, and the goons kind of come out from the Kree people come out from behind and just Kamala turns and is like, I can't fly. And then Carol comes back and actually gets her and is like, Kamala, don't talk to them. And gets it, goes down. I was like, okay, thank you. Can we treat the teenager here like she's part of the crew here, please?
So I will say, from a writing perspective in terms of like the dialogue,
yes,
this is up there with Ragnarok for me because it is so funny.
The dialogue was great. Yeah,
it's not like as dumb and cheesy as Love and Thunder was. It's like the perfect amount of like internet humor that like that is designed for people our age, and it is so funny. Like that moment, I laughed so hard.
Oh, dude, it was so like, and I'm really happy you said that because that's what I'm talking about. That I thought every scene with the three heroes was so well done.
I want to see them together again. I mean, their dynamic was so funny, And well, at least Captain Marvel and Miss Marvel, I want to see, because their humor together is really funny.
Right. And
We'll see. I mean, because wherever Monica ended up, we'll see if where
we'll
she
see,
comes back. But
and we'll get to that for sure. But I mean, just I wanted to definitely address that just because you're right, it really did have Hawkeye energy, especially at the end of the episode when it appears at least that Carol's moving into that house that Monica and the mom used to have, and
yeah,
they get in the plane together. Like oh, like their relationship is actually like one of that of like a mentor mentee thing now, and it just to see that happen for Vellani, that's for sure, for Kamala Khan and also the actress, that's like just really cool. And the other thing that I wanted to point out, and I want to get into this because I want to get into that Kate Bishop scene. Iman Vellani, that's how you say her name, correct?
I think so.
Yeah, so they believe that is how you say it. She's actually like 21 years old. Like she's very much on the young side when it comes to this next wave of young Avengers, which is why this is a little humorous to me, but I actually think that she's the perfect one who they show to be basically have the Nick Fury moment with Kate Bishop. Like you become part of a bigger universe. You just don't know yet. I'm like, okay, we're just gonna get very meta here, and she's just gonna do the thing. I got a kick out of the fact that it's like Kate Bishop's like, oh, I'm 23. I'm like, okay, well the Haley Steinfeld's 27, so okay, but it felt more like this is the actress who should be doing this as well, right? It felt like, yeah, like she should be like the leader. She knows all the Avengers, she knows all the lore, she knows who the people are. She's arguably had more interactions with like Avengers level threats now and Nick Fury to be in the driver's seat of putting a group like this together, right?
Yeah, I mean,
I
especially
guess
because
Cassie Lang has too, but
well, yeah, I mean, they definitely hint that that like she's gonna be in there.
yeah,
I mean, from like a leader standpoint,
yeah,
it makes a ton of sense for Kamala to be sort of, I guess, like the leader, because like also for Iman, because she also I think is probably the one that's like the most obsessed with it. Because it's like
yeah.
she's got literally nothing else going on.
That's true. She's this is literally like this is the big thing for her. But also, if she's not going to be the de facto leader eventually, she's at least the one assembling them. She should definitely be the one assembling the Young Avengers. So that's a good idea. We need to talk about this film.
She's like I'm assembling a team. Oh, a team of who? Basically us. But do you know Ant-Man has a daughter?
Yeah, it's like okay. And that's really just Iman Vellani saying, I have no idea who's going to be in this group yet. I don't think MCU totally does yet either. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, but I liked that scene. And also those two characters are in New York, right? It's like, it makes sense that they would see each other. Got to talk about this film's shortcomings. Like, all right, let's just get this out of the way. The cat scene was awful. I hated that. That was probably the cringiest moment of the entire thing for me. And they're playing a song from Cats in the background. It's like, really, like we're like this is terrible. And also the singing planet. The singing planet was like, okay, like we're just going full Disney princess with this, I guess, at this point.
Yeah, I mean the singing part of it was a little much.
Yeah,
but the dynamic of like they go to this planet and like and like, oh, Carol is like the princess of this planet because she got married to the prince. Like that's a very funny like premise.
It is,
and it played out kind of humorously where she like was hiding and like pretend that like kind of not telling them the truth about that.
right.
But yeah, the singing part of it I think was a little cheesy and a little much.
I also have to say this, and I want to say this in the most respectful way I can. I have no idea. Well, that's gonna be this is not gonna be respectful at all. I have no idea how Brie Larson has made it this far in Hollywood, because to me she's always been very bland. And I may have said that on here before. I have nothing against her as an actress or anything like that. She just, even when she emotes, like there's that moment where she's sharing like why she didn't come back, which was kind of a clunky explanation as why she didn't go back to see Monica to Earth. It's like, really, you didn't, a little bit of a weird thing, but you need that conflict resolved in the writing. I get that, but it's just something she's just very, very like just stone cold in her expressions. Even I've thought that about every time she's been Captain Marvel, and I don't know. I've never been the biggest believer in how she's, you know, been.
For the record, I mean,
Yeah,
she does have an Oscar,
I know.
but I know what you're saying.
What's the
I
Oscar
was gonna
for?
I believe it was for Room.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
I think she won for, I think that was the movie.
yeah. She
Yeah,
plays.
yeah,
She's
it
like
was.
she's like kidnapped and all that. Yeah, I know. I know what
Yeah.
movie you're talking about. Premise is very, very
Um,
rough.
I think
My point
I
stands.
I think that
My point
this was
stands.
her best performance as Captain Marvel.
That's probably true.
I mean, I know what you're saying and I know where you're getting it from, but I just kind of wholly disagree that it's a bad thing. Like she has a very dry sense of humor and personality
She's
as a
stoic,
person,
and I mean that in a
and
positive way.
relatively stoic, and which is why she's so great in dramatic roles like Room
Hmm.
and can play very serious stuff, and it just always doesn't play when it comes to the characters, but it it worked out here in the scenes where she had to confront why the Kree call her the Annihilator,
Yeah.
and why, this was basically revenge for something that she caused.
Right.
And when it came to actually confronting like the crux of why this was happening, she played that fairly well, I would
Yeah.
say.
Maybe,
Um,
maybe I just don't like her as Captain Marvel. So maybe she's much better in everything else. But
yeah. I
to
mean,
me, to me,
I
she's always been
think
the same character she was in Scott Pilgrim versus the World. There, I said it.
pretty much, yeah. I mean, I think that it,
Where
yeah,
she does deliver maybe one of my favorite lines of that entire movie, where Scott's like, "I'm sorry about that," and she's like, "Sorry, you just headbutt my boyfriend so hard that he burst." Yeah, spoiler alert. Yeah, he bursts into coins. Anyway, uh, yeah. So that's all. That's just a take I have. I want to talk about how we briefly saw Tessa Thompson as Valkyrie, who just kind of showed up via the Bifrost and took the rest of those scrolls. So more scrolls are on Earth now. You know, there you go. New Asgard,
yeah,
which is in Norway,
yeah.
right? Thought that was cool. It's like, oh, I always like that just because in the MCU and Marvel comics, you never know who's going to show up. It's a one big conjoined
Yeah,
universe.
that was a very like comic booky cameo.
Yeah,
There's just like some random person shows up and you're like, oh, this is cool.
yeah, she helps me out
Like,
from time to
oh.
time. Well, that also makes you. Well, it's like she helps me out, but it's also like I wonder who else has gone to New Asgard through that
Yeah,
connection. You know what I mean?
yeah.
But all in all, I'm just trying to think here. All in all, let's talk about the ending because Monica does go through the, void or whatever, and you can totally see it coming. It's like, oh, okay, that's a different universe. Here we go. She closes it, and you can even see it coming. Like Carol's going to try to get her, and she's just going to go straight into open space because she's going to close it
Mhm.
up. Um, and then of course the post credit scene, which whether it was a reshoot or not, I don't know. We don't know what's real or what's not totally, but we do see Kelsey Grammer as a Beast, and we see Monica's mother as I actually don't know what character she was, but it's a universe where she doesn't probably have a daughter.
Yeah, I don't know for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and I thought her reaction, Monica's reaction to that at the end was pretty great. But yeah, I mean, it looks like, and he mentioned Charles and all that stuff. I got to say, I thought it was really cool that it was the Beast that I think of when I think of Beast in
Mhm.
X-Men. Older, like I actually thought that was a pretty good
I
casting choice if he wants to come back and be Beast. I was like, oh, Kelsey, that's actually
yeah,
pretty good.
I
I think.
I was making fun of it at the time when like it was like when it was like sort of leaked that was going to be a thing. But if you're going, but it made sense, I think, especially if they end up being in Deadpool or like
Yeah,
if there's some Sony X-Men stuff in Deadpool, it makes sense. And if it's the choice between Nicholas Holt Beast and Kelsey Grammer Beast, I appreciated the member berries of Kelsey Grammer. That was
yeah.
fun.
I mean, that was. I mean, he reminded me of the '90s X-Men comic, or comic,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah,
cartoon. I mean, I'm like when I think of Beast, I think of like a wise older guy who yes, can can throw down with the X-Men, but most of the time is like the smartest guy in the room. One of them, glasses on, always reading, always has a wise word. I'm like, so the CGI wasn't necessarily the best on him, but it was a post-credit scene. I don't fault it for that. But if they really make him look like Beast when they do X-Men and he stays, which he's alluded to, I'm like, that would be cool. That's actually a pretty good casting choice, I think. Anyway, just my opinion.
Yeah, I think on the whole the CGI wasn't great in the movie to begin with. It was definitely not great. I think yeah, I mean, I think the writing for the villain wasn't ideal. It was just very boring and like
very cookie cutter.
I did appreciate though sort of the surprise like fake out at the end when like she actually did try to kill when like she like pretended to give up and then she was like JK, I'm actually gonna try and still kill you.
Yeah, she took both bangles and actually still tried to actually was like, oh, okay, so you were just a villain. Got it. For villain's sake.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was that. All in all, I like I said, I don't think this movie was bad. In a lot of ways, I actually liked it more than the original Captain Marvel, simply for the dynamic of the three of them together. It looked like all three actresses were having a great time. And even for its clunkiness, I like people who were sitting here saying it's like the worst MCU movie. I'm like, I'm sorry, nothing will ever be worse than Thor: The Dark World. That movie is boring, terrible, probably the worst MCU movie until I see something worse. I felt the same way when Eternals came out as a really low Rotten Tomatoes score on that thing. I'm like, you mean to tell me this movie's worse than Thor: The Dark World, which is actually a bad movie? I don't know. That's just my opinion, but I'm ready to rate it if you are.
Yeah, I will also. I don't know if I mentioned this at all before, but the villain Darben, whatever that is actually played by Tom Hiddleston's fiance. So
really, okay,
real interesting connection on that. So yeah, Tom better. That's all I can say.
Yeah, well, Tom was given a lot more to do, right? And will continue to, right? Go ahead and give your rating. Out of the 4.
I mean, I'll probably give it silver. I mean, it's watchable, it's funny, but yeah, I mean, it's not important really to the story like it's not relevant to what's going on.
The most important thing in there is the post-credit scene. I hate to say it, but
yeah,
and even then it just feels like it doesn't feel tacked on, but it definitely showed me that the stuff about them pivoting away from Kang, which I do think they should do, is going to happen. And I
don't know, because apparently I think they just hired. There's a rumor that they hired Michael Waldron to write Kang Dynasty. Well, so I don't know if they're going to give up on that or not.
I just don't know if that name Kang might have something to do with that. I'm not convinced that the movie's going to be called Kang Dynasty. I think that whole thing might be pivoted.
Yeah, maybe.
But here's the thing: you can do this stuff with Fantastic Four and X-Men and still have Kang out there being an issue. Like, you can still do that. You don't have to hang the entire thing on him. You know what I mean? This was a silver for me, and in a universe where the first movie was also a silver, this was a solid silver as well. Like I said, I agree with every point you said, but I'm glad I went to go see it in the theaters because I thought this movie was getting a really bad rap. And also, I'll be honest, coming out at not a great time of the year, just in terms of like if you want a movie to do well, and maybe that was by design, but I don't know. A lot of the stuff that's been said in the negative end with this movie, I don't think anyone involved with it deserves it. I walked away from the theater excited for what they set up. I was really excited between the Kate Bishop scene and the X-Men. I love the X-Men. I haven't gotten a chance to nerd out about the X-Men in the MCU yet. No one is more excited for the X-Men potentially coming than me. Trust me. Love the X-Men. Absolutely love that.
Yeah,
some of the best comics ever written.
Absolutely. And when I got home from that movie, I put on Hawkeye, and started watching some Hawkeye.
Yeah,
So
there it is. Yeah, you got to watch the right at the holidays, perfect time of year. So, yeah, shout out another good show that I'm pretty sure I gave gold when we did our MCU thing.
yeah,
What we're gonna wrap it up here. Why don't you talk about a movie you saw, and then I'll talk about a movie I saw.
yeah. I also went to go see the new Hunger Games movie. Uh Prequel, I guess. Yeah, I mean,
It's a
I'm
prequel,
not.
right?
Yeah, it's a prequel. I also uh recently watched the other Hunger Games movies as well, and so yeah, interesting. I mean, it adds. I mean, I guess to spoilers, whatever. But
Yeah, spoilers. Yeah.
it adds like character. Have you seen the other Hunger Games movies?
No, and
By chance?
I am not a hater or a fan of the franchise of any kind. I generally know like what it's about. Um, I have seen the original movie like Battle Royale, which was kind of all the concept of movies like that, sort of like that.
Yeah.
I know it's much more, bigger lore and all that stuff, but no. So you have the floor here.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it I was just gonna I guess say it sort of the main villain of the original movies and books or whatever is President Snow, who's sort of evil and stuff like this, and this movie is about sort of explaining how he got to be that way.
Mm.
And so it was cool to see interest. I mean, Morgan read the book, and so she knew some other stuff that wasn't in the movie about it. But
This isn't based on a book, though, right?
it is. Yeah, it is.
Oh, it
Yeah.
is. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
I didn't
So
know if this new
Suzanne
one was.
Collins, yeah, Suzanne Collins, the author of this series, came out with this prequel, I think in 2020.
Oh, cool. So it's recent.
And so and so there's some more details that weren't in the movie that were clarifying later. But yeah, I mean the solid movie, I guess. Weird casting choices, in my opinion. Just because there were some odd choices, but Peter Dinklage was in it, and he was great.
Always great.
Yeah, it was a fun watch, I guess.
Out of 10, what would you give it?
uh
Because we typically do that for our other
I guess
reviews, so.
yeah, I'd say, I don't know, I 6.75.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Gotcha. That's solid enough. It's above
I mean,
average.
it's tough to do, like, it's tough to do like book adaptation movies, because like I especially when like I didn't read the book, so I don't really know how to compare it. But it was interesting to see like the universe pre like the first Hunger Games, like
The games. Yeah.
yeah, because like stuff is older, the technology is like more
Oh, I got you.
it's like older, and so it's kind of funny to see
It's cool world
the
building. I mean,
differences. But yeah,
I'm a big believer that like like prequels need to be warranted, because sometimes if you over explain things, it makes the original content less cool. It's kind of how I feel a little bit about some of the stuff they tried to do with like Solo and Star Wars and all that stuff. You wouldn't say that was this movie, right? It was definitely warranted telling the story.
oh well, I mean she wrote the book, so
Right. So
yeah, I mean I'm not gonna say, yeah, I mean I would say there's probably even a couple things more. If she wanted to write some more books, it'd be warranted, because I mean there's a fan base that would be all for more world building,
oh yeah.
and especially for the between those two time periods. Because there's a character that Woody Harrelson plays that's a really cool character, and people want to see like a his story type of movie. It would be kind of cool. But yeah, I mean I think it was just probably about 30 minutes too long. But I mean I don't know what you can cut out of it, because I mean it's a book, so it's like you have to include the book, like
Right.
everything the book has. that's important anyway. So
I can commend the Marvels the fact that it was only an hour and 45 minutes and it
I
felt like
know,
it.
dude. I was like, this is the perfect time. Just like, this is great.
Yeah,
One of the shortest MCU movies I've ever seen.
yeah, and that like what it says about the movie or whatever. I'll quickly just kind of review. I saw Napoleon actually with my mom. Anyone who knows me know that I'm a huge fan of history. It has to do a lot in large part with what I do for work. Um, and I just any portrayal of any kind of situation or thing in the past to kind of put yourself in that, put yourself kind of like back in the frame of that time. But like just kind of seeing Napoleonic Wars. All in all, everything you've heard about the movie is solid. Is it a Ridley Scott epic? Yes. Battle sequences are incredible. There's like 3 to 4 of them in the movie. Not really spoiler since it's just history. Look up your history about Napoleon. I will say that the emphasis on certain things, like that, like there's no avenue in which a 2.5 hour movie encompassing Napoleon's life was going to work. Right? You almost need a 2 or 3 season show to do that, to encompass everything he did. But overall, I liked the movie. Joaquin Phoenix is incredible in it. They chose to not do it in the native language. It's just Joaquin Phoenix talking normally, but you get what's going on. Vanessa Kirby as Josephine, incredible. She absolutely, she stands out in it. I will say though that like it really feels less like you're watching a cohesive narrative of like the story of Napoleon and more like snippets of his life. And some of the jumps that Ridley chose to do, I was like, you you can't just not talk about that, which is why apparently there's going to be a 4-hour director's cut of this movie. I might watch that, like probably not all in one sitting, but I liked it enough to say that I would definitely, just because there were so many parts where I was like, need more explanation here, there. But all in all, any kind of portrayal of like post French Revolution France into Napoleon and just his tactical genius, and of course the battle sequences were just jaw droppingly good looking. So yeah, all in all, I'd have to give a similar rating, Casen, about 6.75 out of 10. If I'm generous, I can push it to a 7. Just because if I do push it to a 7, it's mainly just because I love history, and I love accurate portrayals of history. But
did you
yeah.
did you ever see the Steve Jobs movie with Michael Fassbender?
No, but that was that period of time where there were 2 Jobs movies that came out like a year
Yeah,
from each
yeah,
other. The first
yeah,
one I remember was apparently was Ashton Kutcher, right? He played him.
yeah,
Apparently that one was really frowned upon, and the Fassbender one was like acclaimed.
yeah. I
Right?
saw
Yeah.
both.
Never saw those. Yeah.
The
Might have to do
yeah,
that.
the so the one with Ashton Kutcher, I think, was more like sort of like a stylistic opinion sort of it, or like a dramatization of it. The one with Michael Fassbender was written by Aaron Sorkin, based on the Walter Isaacson novel about like our biography of him that was like
Yeah.
1,000 pages long.
Yeah.
It was directed by Danny Boyle. So it was a lot more historically accurate. That one was weird because it was like just jump cuts at different moments in time.
Gotcha.
Like there was like one scene that was like right before a keynote. It was like it was like just 3 or 4 different like 25 or 30-minute like conversations at different scenes, in different moments in time.
You're telling me that
And so,
you're telling me they didn't jump straight from the Macintosh right to the iPhone?
well,
Just kidding. I'm kidding.
it was just interesting because I'm trying to figure out how Napoleon, or how the Napoleon movie was set up, because like the Ashton Kutcher movie was like an actual narrative where like it followed like the story of him in Wozniak like building Apple computers.
Right.
And this one was just like jump cuts of like these things that happened. And so was there even any, because I've heard that about this movie, is that it's not really like
It's
a
not really.
through line A
No, I
to
mean
Z
it's
narrative.
what he did. Yeah, the like the jumps I'm talking about is like they jump a few years to like they jump from certain things straight to his coronation without any explanation as to why he needed to become emperor of France. They have a scene where he's like buddy with the Tsar of Russia, and then they cut not long after that. I think there's a scene in between. They cut not long after that to his invasion of Russia, which if you know anything about Napoleon, was a complete disaster and led to the beginning of his downfall. And they didn't give any explanation as to they just showed the year, and it was like there was no explanation of what fractured the relationship for us to be now doing this. Like, the best way I can put it is
there weren't like years. Like
there were years, but
okay.
there was no explanation of like what was happening of those moments, and those were probably the biggest two jarring jumps in the narrative. Now, I will say this: it is not a movie for someone who knows nothing about Napoleon at all. I would say if you want, like, read up on him like I have at various points. And
I was gonna say, like, you always need to come in with some spark notes over what he did.
Yeah, I mean, right, and having known a lot about Napoleon, like one of my favorite my favorite point in the movie, I'll just say this, was one of my favorite stories in all of history is when they exiled him the first time and Napoleon just comes back. He just jumps on a boat. Like, that was handled incredibly well, and up to and including like the soldiers who kept like joining him on the way. And then they show the Battle of Waterloo, which was probably the best. He's like last stand, his best. That's the best scene in the movie, I think. And it was just, that is one of my favorite things. It's like, hey, we're going to exile you. And it's like, well, here's the thing. An exile is only a thing if you adhere to it. I'm just going to come back. It's like, that is like one of my favorite. And the fact that it just worked, and he almost he never had a really realistic chance to really take France back again. And then they show how lock and key he was on St. Helena at the end of his life. Because if you're not familiar, Napoleon, he was exiled again on an even more remote island off of Africa. And there were 2 British ships that actually circled him at all times on that island. Like, they made sure that this time he's definitely not coming back. And they show that's like where the movie ends. But yeah, definitely go into it knowing more about Napoleon. I should also say it's an R-rated movie. It's very real, very raw. I'm not saying that in the sense of it's violent for violence sake. It's real, it's a war film. So I liked it for what it was, but I definitely probably will check out that director's cut. So 6.75, if I'm generous, a 7 out of 10. So that's what I got.
Yeah.
Ridley Scott makes great movies, man.
Yeah.
85 years young, like, still killing it.
That sounds like a Ridley Scott, like, tough to digest type of movie.
If you just want a good time, listeners, go look up Ridley Scott's filmography, because it is incredible. Like, he has made, like, there is no genre of film the man cannot tackle and do really well. I think his next film is literally Gladiator 2. Is next on the docket. Like, he's already making it, so I'm here for it.
The last movie he made was House of Gucci.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was also Ridley Scott.
If you want some hilarious fun, go look all the way back to whatever it is, 1975, or whenever he started making movies. Like, it's insane how many like bangers he has. It's great. So
yeah.
That's it for
Alien
us.
and Blade Runner. Yeah.
Yep.
Made
Blade Runner,
career.
like, they're just incredible films. There's like not a bad film there. There are some better than others, but I'm like, Ridley Scott just makes incredible movies, and this one was good too. So I just think could have gone further into it. So anyway, that's the show. It's good to be back talking to everybody. We'll put this out there like we normally do. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching, listening. Hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving and you're going into the holiday season with all the good stuff. I actually have a small Christmas tree up in my place now, off to the side here. So definitely starting to feel that Hollywood cheer. And I was thinking of something, Casen. One of the things we're going to have to do at the end of the year, and I'm just going to say this, we need to do like our top 5 movies of the year. We have a podcast where we rate movies. We're going to have to do like, well, for our end of year show. That's a thing that I was like, I'm just going to say it right on the cast, because we got to do that. So I've been thinking about that, and I think some of the stuff's going to surprise some people when we do the top 5. So anything more, my friend?
I think that was all I had.
Cool. Episode of the week, episode 39 in the books now. So next will be the 40th. So
was this 40?
This is wait, did I screw it up? No, I got 38. I got 38 on the docket. This is 39.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's like when he sees it, he'll get it. So until next time, this is Kellan.
This is Casen.
And we'll see you at the next stop.